on AM 830 WCRN.
It was another quiet night at the office. No phone calls, no messages. Nothing but junk mail and overdue bills to keep me company. Seems nobody wants to hire a real private dick anymore, a professional like me. A guy who does the detective work nobody else wants to do. A guy who wears hats and walks around in a black and white world. I began contemplating a more profitable line of work, like politics.
We are the show you want to know. It's time to talk to you.
All right, folks, good afternoon, and welcome to the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mnagiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN. Sorry about yesterday, folks. It's been a little while with the holiday and all, although I did enjoy the 3 hours filling in for Mike Wade on Saturday morning. That was fun to do 3 hours because we do meet here every day, but it's an hour at a time. So it's really hard to pick what is it that we're going to talk about. What am I going to focus in on that day? So that is a daily challenge, folks. And of course, always open to what you have to say as well. Let's take care of some housekeeping. You can join the conversation for the next hour at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Our text line is up and running at 617-297-8388, 617-297-8388. Meanwhile, I'm broadcasting from the palatial but not overly ostentatious studios at Cameo Studio. So the Cameo cam is on, which means I do stream the show on the station's social media accounts, Facebook and YouTube page, as well as mine, Facebook, X, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, and live to Rumble on the Joe Mnagiacotti Show there. And the show is always turned into a podcast and then loaded up. So you can download it and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, like iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Play, etc. Wherever you get your podcasts, you can do that as well. Meanwhile, today, behind the glass, flying the board back at HQ, he'll get you set up and into the studio for two-way talk and conversation. Again, at 508-871-7000. The station does stream 24/7 to the TuneIn app. And I love that feature, guys, because you can do what I do. Take the station anywhere. Put it on your device, in and out of the car, shopping, whatever you're doing, you can have it streaming and going along. Funny story, actually. I don't know if I already shared this. But I stopped at the 99 in Framingham last week, right before Thanksgiving. And I had, as you can see, if you're watching the streaming now, or you see me at work, I usually have a polo shirt on with the beautifully embroidered logo of WCRN on the shirt, thanks to John Gerton and the good folks at Gerton Graphics. And the bartender saw the WCRN. And when she asked, okay, what's the deal with the station? I said, that's my station, work there and everything. And she said, who are you? I said, Joe Mnagiacotti. And she surprised and looked at me and put her hand out to shake it. Apparently her and her husband, boyfriend, not husband, listen to the station all the time. And he does that. She said he streams it on his phone and just walks around carrying the phone, even when he's mowing the lawn or whatever. He has the station streaming. So thank you to them. Again, 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. And don't forget, if you want to jump in and watch and listen on any of those systems, you can do that. I wanted to start definitely, I want to address, because in the top of the news, you heard the story of Pete Hegseth in the boat. We're going to get to that. But the first thing I got to address is this Minnesota's $1 billion social services fraud and the complete and utter incompetence of Governor Tim Walz and his role in this. And just background on it, bring everybody up to date on this. Federal and state auditors, or audits, I should say. Plus, there was a detailed New York Times investigation, by the way. It described this years-long waiver fraud. Years-long waiver fraud inside Minnesota's social service in COVID era relief programs. Now, stop me if you heard this before. COVID relief era fraud. Say it ain't so. They also brought in the child nutrition program. That was called Feeding Our Future, FOF. FOF to me is Frontiers of Freedom, of course. But FOF, Feeding Our Future in Minnesota, they used the Housing Stabilization Department there, autism therapy, and much more. Under Governor Tim Walz, Minnesota was a gold mine. Not for the people of Minnesota, for the fraudsters, for the criminals, and apparently mostly the Somalians. Now, this is dozens of operators, many tied to nonprofit entities. Some of them, you guessed it, NGOs. Have I not been ringing the bell about these NGOs for literally years now? But these NGOs, these nonprofits, they build government agencies for services that were never provided. You know what that does to your profit margin if you get to build a government for all of these programs and you don't actually have to do any of the programs or pay anybody or buy any materials? Sends that profit margin right through the roof. Prosecutors say at least hundreds of millions of dollars and potentially more than $1 billion with a B, guys, $1 billion in taxpayer funds were stolen, with most of the criminal indictments and convictions. See, they're brought by federal U.S. attorneys rather than state prosecutors. Now, I know Governor Timmy has gone on some of the talk shows and talked about how here's no problem. It's his job is going to put people behind jail. There's no problem doing that, except you didn't. You didn't. You signed off on this stuff. And even when it was brought to your attention, you were so afraid to offend the Somalian huge population in Minnesota that you turned a blind eye. In some places, you even endorsed it. So don't pretend the governor, and it was the state that cracked all this down. Majority of it, most of it, like lion's share majority of this, was brought by U.S. attorneys rather than state prosecutors. It was the federal government who said enough. And many of those charges are members of the Minnesota's Somalia community, which has inflamed an already hot debate over immigration and oversight. Has it not? And they accuse Democrat Governor Tim Walz and his appointees of ignoring whistleblower warnings. A matter of fact, even retaliating against internal critics and hiding behind racial politics instead of aggressively rooting out the fraud. And it seems a lot of times that certain members of the Democratic Party have great admiration for whistleblowers when it really works for them. And they're whistleblowing or even making it up against Trump or Republicans. But whistleblowers that could bring their house of cards down, not so much. Not so much at all. So the Minnesota Department of Human Services employees, they have accused Walz and his appointees of ignoring these whistleblowers, ignoring the warnings, and then retaliating against them. Outraged by the scams, this is Walz. He says he's outraged by the scams. He insists he tried to halt payments early and argues that a state judge and systematic weaknesses limited his ability to act. A claim the judge and Walz's opponents dispute. Yeah. You're a cuckold. You have no business in that position, although the people put you there. So Minnesotans, I don't know if that's what you call them, right? Minnesotans, you put him in that office. And then he was complacent at best in you being defrauded out of $1 billion of your hard-earned tax dollars. That's on you. That is on you. What's the size and scope of this thing? Well, acting U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson, again, it was the U.S. attorneys and the federal government that really, they're responsible for this. The article, the investigatory article also helped. But U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson says fraud in Minnesota government programs exceed, by all indications right now, over $1 billion. Calls it extraordinary and pervasive problem. Yeah. The federal prosecutors have charged 78 people, with 59 already convicted or they pleaded out. mostly in three major schemes, again tied to food aid, housing stabilization, and autism health care services. Some of these indictments and reports are even talking that these people had such a well-run fraud machine going that they approached parents and brought them into it and said, look, we're going to list your child on the spectrum. We're going to list your child as autistic, and we're going to provide services, and you're going to get a kickback. You go along with this, and the kickbacks were between like $300 and $1,500 a month for going along with it. So if they were kicking back $1,500 a month, what were they billing the taxpayers for the services or alleged services going on there? So how did this work? Well, operators created or used nonprofits and shell companies. And they claim to, feed tens of thousands of children who didn't even exist. Very easy to cook for. Providing housing services to non-existing clients. Imagine that. Not a lot of construction costs, cleaning costs, no electric bill, sewer bill, pretty good deal. And deliver autism therapy or other services that were never actually rendered because they weren't autistic. These are the scams. Money was siphoned into luxury homes, cars, travel, overseas property, and in some cases, under federal investigation, allegedly sent to the terrorist group Al-Shabaab. Now we're bringing in foreign terrorist organizations, Al-Shabaab. This is a Pandora's box, is it not? This is going to be interesting. And where were these overseas properties? I bet you I could guess within 3 guesses. In luxury homes, cars, travels, and it sounds a lot like the scam BLM did, doesn't it? Folks, this is a huge, I don't think we've seen the end of this. A lot more people to come. Governor Walz said, this guy, think about this. This is the man Kamala selected to be vice president, and if it broke her way, he was a heartbeat away from the presidency, and look how inept, incompetent, and corrupt this guy is. But we have to take our first break here in the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mnagiacotti Show here at AM 830 WCRN. You can join the conversation at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000 for the time that we have left here together. So stick with us and be back in 2 minutes and 2 seconds, folks.
What if your body already knows how to heal? It just needs the right support to do it. Bioregulatory medicine is a total body and mind approach to health that works with your body, not against it. It's a safe, gentle, drug-free, and proven medical model that supports your natural ability to regulate, adapt, regenerate, and heal without side effects. Whether you're seeking to restore health or prevent illness, bioregulatory medicine offers a smarter path forward. Take control of your health with knowledge. Visit brmi.online, home of the Bioregulatory Medicine Institute, a nonprofit global leader offering a powerful free library of trusted resources, articles, podcasts, videos, and more, all at your fingertips. Visit brmi.online. That's brmi.online.
Step into the magic of winter in Wooville, where Polar Park transforms into a sparkling holiday wonderland. Stroll through twinkling lights, meet Santa in his workshop, decorate cookies, and explore our Christmas tree village, each tree supporting local nonprofits. Bring the whole family for festive treats, music, and the spirit of the season in the heart of Worcester. Tickets on sale now at polarpark.com/Wooville. Don't miss the magic of winter in Wooville happening this December at Polar Park.
Hi, I'm Dr. Eddie Arus with the Vascular Care Group. If knee pain is making everyday activities feel like a struggle, and you've been told your only option for relief is major surgery, think again. Genicular artery embolization is a non-surgical outpatient treatment that can dramatically reduce pain and improve mobility. It targets the inflammation that's causing your arthritis knee pain, and best of all, is performed right in our office. To learn more about living the pain-free life, visit thevascularcaregroup.com with offices in Worcester and Sturbridge, Massachusetts.
All right, folks, welcome back here. Second segment of the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mnagiacotti Show on December 2nd. The year has gone by very quickly, and the countdown to the big guy showing up is on here. I got a chance to take in the Nutcracker at the Hanover Theater. Always a fantastic place to see a show. The Hanover Theater. I remember I was doing the dining and entertainment show when they opened up many years ago. And they've done such a fantastic job, really keeping the 1923 feel to the Hanover Theater. So Boston Pop's there this Saturday, 5th, I think, maybe Sunday, I don't know, 5th, I think, whatever day that is. Keith Lockhart and the Pops will be there. That's a good take as well. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. 508-871-7000. I was touching on this whole Minnesota $1 billion scam fraud going on here. The U.S. attorney, they're the ones really responsible. So when Walz gets up there and tries to talk about the role of governors to put people in jail, the role of the governor is not to allow this happen under your nose for years and years. The role of the governor is to protect the taxpayers and citizens, legitimate citizens of your district, of your state, rather. That's what your role is. It's not to be complacent and even assist in this by your ignorance and turning the blind eye to it. The U.S. Attorney Thompson, he said that they've already prosecuted about $500 million in Minnesota government program fraud over the recent years here. And they've recovered some money, right? They've recovered from the Feeding Our Future case alone about $60 million in recoup funds. Kudos. Well done. It's a drop in the bucket to 500 million plus, but at least they clawed back some of that money. And again, Feeding Our Future. So they just scammed with these shell corporations. See, if you understand bureaucratic paperwork and how things work, if you create the corporation on paper, you get the EIN number, get the address and so forth. In one case, for this federal money or the state money that they're getting that's actually funded by federal money, but it's administered on the state level. And these were Somalians running this scam. And on the paperwork, the form and stuff where you have to set this up, they ask for the phone number. They didn't take the time, effort to even go get a Google number and put a BS outgoing message. You know what they put the phone number? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's on the form. They just put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And left it. And nobody called it. Nobody challenged it. Nobody said, really? There's no such number as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. But there it is. Enforcement has been almost entirely federal. Almost entirely federal. U.S. DOJ, U.S. Attorney's Office, and federal agencies. State-level criminal action has been minimal by comparison. Minimal by comparison. Almost all federal. Again, DOJ, U.S. Attorney's Office, and some various other federal agencies are responsible for these investigations, following the paperwork, and bringing the charges, and even recouping some of that money. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. Don't forget, we are streaming on my social media platforms, X, Facebook, Twitch TV, LinkedIn profile, and of course on Rumble, or go to the station's Facebook page or YouTube channel. Let me go to the phones. Tyler's waiting patiently. Hey, Tyler, what say you? And happy Thanksgiving. Merry Christmas, by the way.
Yes. Let it snow. Let it snow. Hey, talk about snowing. This is Walz's Wonderland and the manipulation and abuse of autistic. You said huge kickback numbers. Imagine what they were getting. Joe, that's why I triple bill the government. And like you said, like I said years ago, the shell corporations and the blocker corporation to bring it back. It's organized fraud. But Joe, on a serious note, other than these clowns, this fool that came over here from Afghanistan used to work with our government and help control and maintain a mess. And then he came over here and got radicalized, drove what I think is a long distance with those targeted. There was a lot more opportunities before he drove such a long distance. And this ending point, AOC is teaching them how to go against ICE and resist, and saying that's legal in this country, but the synagogue in North Carolina that was attacked, it's okay, you're teaching the wrong international law on Israeli immigration. This is Hellapalooza, and we're going to destroy it. You get it?
Got it. Yeah. Yep.
So what do you think? How did this guy drive so far? He was radicalized here by AOC. He used a Christian front. The Muslims are sick of it. The Muslim is wudu and Allah Wallah. Cool head prevail. Wudu. Wash your hands in water and calm down. Not go out and kill innocent people.
Right.
So it's sickening, but you have to use a Christian front or a Muslim front. You know, what do you think about this and how this guy traveling a long distance? Wasn't there many other opportunities? You didn't have to drive that far. Just questions you have to ask.
I got to tell you, Tyler, the thing here is I see some of the similarities about people like why are people driving across? We had that with Brett Kavanaugh, the kid that drove across the country to do this. You see this, so it becomes irrelevant when you got the golf course attempt with that guy down there on Trump. He was not just traveled across the country, traveled from Hawaii. He went to Ukraine. He went to Middle East. And he has like $38 in his checking account, and you start to wonder, where's the funds coming from this? How are they getting radicalized? They can watch everything we do. The IRS is coming out to get you if you sell a couch on Facebook Marketplace, but they're missing all of this. They're missing all of this. Thank you so much for the call, Tyler. I appreciate it. Let me go to what do we got here? We've got Mark waiting patiently. Hey, Mark, what say you?
Well, the southern border has been secure. Thanks to Donald J. Trump. That's something the Biden administration didn't do during their whole 4-year tenure, which meant that the illegal aliens and the drugs were flowing freely from the cartels south of the border into the United States for distribution in the United States so they could kill our kids. Isn't that wonderful? Well, Trump has put a stop to that, okay? Because they can't get it through the border anymore, the cartels. So what are they doing? They've hopped up cigarette boats that are going out of Venezuela as well as Colombia in the Pacific side, and he's blowing them out of the water. I want to ask you, Mr. Kelly, I've seen the satellite photos. We all have. From the Department of Defense showing these things being blown up, but they also show them before they're blown up, and they're lined with bags and bags and bags of What do you, Mr. Kelly? What do you think's in there? Colombian coffee beans, you moron!
You know, Mark, the other day I was having a conversation with my buddy because the news was on or whatever, and I commented on this because we see those satellite photos, we see the DoD photos, you see the blatantness that they're using these high-speed boats where the bundles are out there, and I'm thinking back to, back in the 80s, at least they had they didn't have the audacity to do that. They had the wherewithal to use like luxury yachts, and they would conceal it in the walls and the cushions and at least pretended. But they've gotten so just arrogant that no one was going to challenge it anymore, and they could freely do this. Plus they do have a lot of politicians and law enforcement paid off. I'm not condemning the entire system, but there's way too many people on the payroll by the cartels to ignore it. And they don't even try anymore, Mark, to your point. They're doing these high-speed boats, and the drugs are bundled, sitting right out there in plain sight. And I'm going to get into this. Go ahead.
They're all waterproof. They've wrapped and wrapped and wrapped in plastic, and then gorilla tape to make it all watertight. That's to make sure that the Colombian coffee beans don't get soaked, Mr. Kelly. Don't you know that?
Yeah, absolutely, Mark. It's ridiculous. I'm actually going to get.
Hey, I live with this. They think we're all idiots. All right?
Yeah,
Well,
they
I
do.
got news for you. 50% of us are idiots. The other 50% are not idiots, and we see what's happening, okay?
Absolutely, Mark. Thank you for the call. Excellent point. And I actually, thank you again, Mark. So I actually am, guys, I want to get into this whole Pete Hegseth, the boats, the war crimes being accused, and of course, anything. It's all political, and they're getting into this. But we're going to take a break in a minute. But when we come back, I do want to talk about the LOAC. That's the Law of Armed Conflict, the rules of how wars are fought, and then the accusation. And let's break that down a little bit, because again, for political reasons, they're going after Trump, and they're going after everybody connected with Trump in any way they can. They dropped the case in Georgia, right? And what was it, like 16 people surrounding Trump? Also, those all went away as well. When Fannie Willis was removed from the case, the new prosecutor comes in and says, this is not in the best interest of the people of Georgia, because it's a nothing burger. There's nothing there pursuing this. We're going to drop all this. But what's going on with the accusations, that when Trump took this, it's absolutely legal to do it. But they're focusing on this one particular shot, right? Or that there was 2 hits to the boat. But we've got to look at the laws of armed conflict first, and exactly what went on there. Just remember this: when a military target is acquired and it's hit, if the mission wasn't complete, you can hit it again. What I mean by that is, and this counts, this is the big thing on this. They hit the boat, and if it's still afloat, and it can still either salvage the cargo or communicate back what's going on, they're still an active target. And if the motivation or the intent behind the second hit was to finish the job that in their estimate was not done, then that second hit is absolutely within law. It's not a war crime, and it can be done. However, if the 2 people, right, 11 people, 9 killed on the first hit, 2 still living, if the sole purpose was to kill those 2 people, that is a war crime. But let's break that down. We have to take our mid-show break here on the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mnagiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. 508-871-7000. What say you? Your 2 cents on this. We're going to talk about the boats, the drugs, Pete Hegseth, War Department, what's going on down there. Yes, we'll bring Kelly into the conversation as well. Back in two. Stick with us, folks.
Time now for the forecast from the Boston Independence Group Weather Center. Call Jerry Doherty today at 877-772-1776. Retirement is within reach.
I'm meteorologist Sherry Spearn. Here's the latest Boston 25 weather on Radio 830 WCRN. We're going to keep it snowy this afternoon. We've got a wintry mix. Western northward, we're looking at mostly snow with about 3 to 6 inches. Locally, we could have some higher totals, especially at the highest elevations. But closer to the coastline, those totals will go down. And in the Boston area today, it is going to be heavy rain as opposed to snow. So all that precipitation winds down overnight tonight. Tomorrow, we're back on track with dry weather. It stays pretty chilly this week with highs in the 30s. I'm meteorologist Sherry Spearn. You can hear Boston 25 live for the morning drive weekdays on AM 830 WCRN.
More live and local radio is next. Stay tuned to Radio Central 830 WCRN.
This is Jerry Doherty, host of Making Money Last, right here on WCRN. Like all business owners, I'm interested in why people choose to work with Boston Independence Group. So I asked my clients. The most common response, Jerry does not try to be all things to all people. Boston Independence Group is specialized, focused solely on retirement planning. My customers enjoy the difference. We do one thing, and we do it exceptionally well. Help other people live better in retirement. That's it. If you're ready to retire or making plans to retire, we can do for you what we've done for hundreds of other retirees throughout New England. Live better in retirement. Just give me a call. I'll show you how. My toll-free number is 877-772-1776. 877-772-1776. Again, that number is 877-772-1776. And you can visit us on the web at bostonindependencegroup.com. bostonindependencegroup.com.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half of the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mnagiacotti Show here on AM 830 WCRN Radio Central. Reminding folks you can take us anywhere by the streaming app, TuneIn. So you just load us in there. Well, you load the TuneIn app, punch in WCRN, you see our cool logo. Do me a favor, hit the like button. We know you're there, and then we're very easy to find. A lot of people do listen that way. I like that as a feature. Of course, you can always tune in to my social media platforms or the station's Facebook, YouTube account. Watch us and listen there, as many people do. 508-871-7000 to join the conversation. That's 508-871-7000. So I do want to shift gears and get into this this situation with the boats and the drug trafficking, which has gone ignored for far, far too long. In the absolute complacency and ignoring this problem by administration after administration is crazy. And Hegseth is on the hot seat right now, but I believe he's safe. But we'll get into that. Let's go to the phones first. 508-871-7000. Ken's waiting patiently. Hey, Ken, happy holidays to you, man. How are you?
Same to you, Joe. And I'll pick right up on the topic you want to discuss in this half hour.
Sure.
There's so many parts of Venezuela. Did you know one of our not so good friends who was really tight with Venezuela and Nicaragua? What his name is? I'm forgetting his president's name.
Moro? Venezuelan president. Say again?
You're forgetting too.
Yeah, Moro, right? What the hell?
Whatever. But
yeah, whatever it is.
Did you know that there's a Middle East country that's doing a lot of training there off the coast? You want to guess who that is?
Color me surprised.
Ding, 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 ding. Thoughts with an eye.
India?
No, I said Middle East. Iran.
Oh, Iran. Right. Okay. That's not surprising. You got to remember, I mean, and we go back to Monroe Doctrine in our hemisphere, and this is something that Trump mentioned the other day, about staying out of our hemisphere to these countries, including Iran, including China. This is something that we have got to watch, and we've got to nip it in the bud. I mean, they got a lot of foothold, all these countries in the Biden administration. Look how far China got with Panama and stuff, and Trump had to threaten to repossess the Panama Canal, for Christ's sakes. So yeah, and he's looking to these people to back him up, right, to stay in power. And Trump gave him the ultimatum. You leave. You can leave. We'll give you a safe passage, and you leave. And Trump has to make it so hot that Iran, China, and everybody else don't want to touch it anymore.
Exactly. You mentioned China. You mentioned the Monroe Doctrine. How about the Barbary pirate? If just a little bit more than half of the public, Marx says it's 50-50. If we could just get the 51 that really know all these things, they'd be like, oh, we got to stop them fast. Because they're all the bad are aligned together. The Nicaragua, Noriega is who I'm thinking of. There's a Maduro now. Maduro. Yeah, my guy. All right. So anyway, he is heavily funded by the Chinese. And why are the Chinese so heavily funding him? Because he piled up a ton, and his predecessor, Chavez, a ton of debt. They had so much oil, but their communism was so corrupt and bad, it put them in a lot of debt. So China comes along and says, oh, we'll help you out if you don't mind.
And we'll even build you a port, but we get to build our own port too, that we totally control. That's what China was doing. It's done it and doing it in Africa. It's doing it in certain countries in South America, right? China's coming in. We'll help you out. We'll help with the infrastructure. We'll build you this port, but we get to build a port that's just for us, nobody else, totally under our control. And they accept those terms because they're broke and they're corrupt.
Yep, and it just keeps piling up. And then what is this Trump guy doing? He comes along and he tries to turn the apple cart over. Like the apple cart had good apples. No, it had a lot of rotten apples. And thank God he's doing it. And then you have Pete Hegseth, who came from the wrong aisle, the wrong side of media. Why? He's not he's a fox. We got to get him. And they're doing everything possible to bring him down and bring Trump down with a little bit of education. All people would be doing is say, yeah, Pete, yeah, Donald, go get him. Finally, we get somebody on our side instead of the bad side.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that is what's happening here. Again, Trump at all, right? Trump and company is not part of the overall program, never was. The 2016 election upset the whole plan. It was supposed to be Hillary. They were so confident, right, Ken, that Hillary was going to come in. They actually were dumbfounded. They immediately the day after the 2016 election, they said, we need to put all these contingency plans in. We got to come up with plans that we didn't even have because this wasn't supposed to happen. And they have spent 10 years trying to destroy the man, put him behind prison, as well as everybody that supported him or worked with him, and that's going to include Pete Hegseth, Pam Bondi, Dan Bongino, Patel, everybody, right? They're just on the wrong. These people are going the Democratic machine and elitist machine. When Trump leaves office, they're going to feel the protection. I just saw something about the protection is gone when somebody made that comment. One of these politicians basically threatening vengeance. And when Trump's out and gone, finally, all these people are going to be targeted with lawfare. Straight up. You know it.
We've only seen that for 10 years, like we don't expect it if they ever get in power.
Yep.
And here's the real kicker of just how their heads are where it don't belong. Do you remember 4 years ago when we left Afghanistan? And they're trying to make a comparison with these boats. Whoa. Wait a minute. You remember in Afghanistan, Kabul? You remember they screwed up twice. First, they get the word that, hey, there's a guy trying to sniper, right?
Yeah.
They tell him, no, take him out. Don't take him out. That's all the sniper what? Takes out 13 of ours, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then what followed? They had to get even, didn't they? So who did they end up blowing up? But a local friend family of ours. I mean, they can't shoot straight. And does anybody say, well, that was an illegal action? Did anybody say that in Benghazi?
No, and nobody, this outrage didn't exist when Barack Obama, killed an American in a drone attack, and he has the record still for drone attacks on foreign land. But it's always okay if it's your party, your guy. And the Republicans, they weren't on, they don't do it. They don't operate the same way or have that mentality. Maybe they should. And that's one of the things I think, Ken, that has thrown this off is now the Democrats have somebody like a Trump who's, no Republicans. You think Mitt Romney or Kane or anybody ever punched back like this or stood up like this? They're not used to it. It's like talking with a liberal in an actual debate. What do they eventually do? Walk away or call you a racist? Because when you break down a lot of these positions and stuff, they can't be defended with common sense or point by point. But in their echo chamber, it's wonderful. And they repeat and regurgitate. And it's fine because it's all within that same bubble. But boy, when you put it out there, look at some of the liberals who have been on, like Bill Maher. All right, and they get challenged. That short guy, what's his Omar Pratt or something? He's been on TV and movies for a long time, and he's talking about Bill Maher's talking about some of the simple things with COVID and the whole trans community. And he's like, "What are you talking about? When did that happen? How do you not know these things are huge in the news? To actually be this Hollywood elite." And not even understand what the rest of the country knows to be as information that everybody knows. It's crazy. But Trump has changed all that, right? I mean, and I think it's like permeated out, and we're seeing it among other races, that candidates now are ready to stand up and punch back when they're attacked by the left.
Joe, it's time we made our own war crime rules. So this is, it might be a war crime when you just blow up innocent family that happens to be aligned with us, whether it be Afghanistan or any foreign place. So maybe that was take a look at. And it's borderline when you're talking about someone that's in a fighting war uniform. That, okay, you blow up part of whatever they're doing, and there's some survivors, and you happen to be actually on ground, and you can actually, take them and imprison them, become a prisoner of war. Yep, that's how you're supposed to do it. But I'm sorry, when it comes to drug traffickers, they're like the pirate 200 plus years ago. Yeah. Thomas Jefferson had no problem taking them all out any chance he had. And that's what the chance was here. Okay, they blew up 11 people and there were 2 left. Get the last 2. That's not a war crime. That's doing a favor for the rest of the world.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to talk about that because the LOAC has some very clear things. Some professors have come out to explain this and defend Hegseth because, again, as I said at the top of the segment, guys, the intention here, if there are just 2 people in the water and your mission has been completed, yeah, that would be a war crime. That's execution. That's murder. But they, in this case here, just to jump ahead, they had to finish that mission. So it wasn't what it, and I understand what you're saying, but here's the whole premise. These organizations, i.e. the cartels, the drug cartels, have systematically been poisoning our country. And for the majority of the people, Ken, who end up dying from overdoses, and I've made this distinction, I can't tell you how many times. They're not overdoses. When the drug is laced with fentanyl for the purpose of killing you, that is murder. That is not overdose. That is murder. I've used the analogy over and over again. If I snuck into your home or I was the pharmacist and I put fentanyl into your insulin and you thought you were taking your 10 cc's of insulin to balance out your diabetes and you die from it, that's a Columbo episode, right? You're charged with murder. And so these drug dealers have crossed the line from dealing drugs and murdering people through that kind of happenstance to straight up murder when you lace drugs that you're marketing, listen to me, you're selling as, say, Ritalin or something. That is murder. Ken, thank you for the call. We're against the clock, folks. We're going to take a break, come back with the 4th and final. Back in two. Stick with us.
We invite you to listen each weekend to the Voice of Truth broadcast with Pastor L.R. Shelton.
My friend, that is declaring yourself before God. You'll keep repeating over and over again what you are, what God has showed you.
That's the Voice of Truth broadcast each weekend on this station.
Did you know by age 35, most people start to notice the effects of declining hormone levels? Symptoms include lack of energy, less focus, decreased sex drive, weight gain, and poor quality sleep. Twist 25 DHEA cream helps men and women 35 and up to maintain vitality, youthful vigor, enhanced mood and focus, and a better night's sleep. As a base building block for hormones, DHEA gives the body a key foundation it uses to make hormones. Visit twist25.com to learn more or call 888-489-4782. 888-4TWIST25.
Hi, folks. This is Mike Stacey, head professional at Norton Country Club, welcoming you to the start of the 2025 golf season. Norton Country Club is a championship 18-hole golf course located just minutes off of 485. The course came through the winter grade and we're open for daily fee, as well as having membership opportunities and outings available. Our clubhouse is a great venue for your wedding or group gathering needs. If you're interested, call 508-285-2400, extension 1 for events, or 103 for golf, as well as nortoncountryclub.com. Hope to see you out there.
The best Italian cuisine served by some of the nicest folks you'll ever meet is at Zidi's Italian Trattoria. It's fine Italian cooking at the Speedway Shopping Center, 290 Turnpike Road in Westboro. It's like sitting down with your family for an authentic home-cooked Italian meal. From intimate dinners to catering for events of all sizes. From pizzas and calzones to classic Italian dinners. Every meal at Ziti's is one you'll remember. Head on down to Ziti's, 290 Turnpike Road in Westboro.
All right, folks, welcome back here to the fourth and final segment on the Tuesday edition of the Joe Mnagiacotti Show on AM 830 WCRN. You can join the conversation for the time we have left together here at 508-871-7000. That's 508-871-7000. Now, we only have a few minutes left, but I did want to get into some of the points or the finer points of the boats, the sinking of them, the attacking, the stopping the traffic. And it's very important that we understand that the LOAC, the laws of armed conflict, because it's going to be very applicable when talking about this particular destruction of a boat. I think it was back in September. And the rules of how wars are fought, you can and cannot do in combat. Of course, this is understood to be universal in war. And of course, we have certain entities that don't practice this, don't look at it. But it is meant to protect civilians, prisoners, and the wounded, and limit unnecessary suffering. That is just understood. It's okay. Look, you're in war. You have targets. Everybody understands that. Soldiers understand that. But these basically law of armed conflict are meant to protect those particular groups, civilians, prisoners, wounded. And it comes from the treaties like the Geneva Conventions and customary international law. And it is built into U.S. military training and our rules of engagement. So key LOAC principles commanders and JAGs talk about all the time. And let's talk about the distinction. So you must distinguish between combatants and civilians. And you can only intentionally target legitimate military objectives. And of course, proportionality. We hear this in terms of military all the time. When somebody or some group does something to an American or an American vessel, American building, we respond, and it's always important that we proportionally respond. Even if the target is legal, you can't launch an attack where the expected civilian harm is excessive compared to the concrete military advantage. Where do we see a lot of this exercise? Quite frankly, Israel and Hamas in Gaza. Because the IDF, what do? Hell, they dropped leaflets for the civilians. We're about to take military action in this area. Get the hell out of here. They were very aware of these rules and understandings. And they also were aware that Hamas used civilians as human shields and concealed stashes of weapons under schools and hospitals. But proportionality is very important when we're talking about military operations. And of course, what's the necessity? The military's necessity. You can only use force that's necessary to achieve a legitimate military objective, not just to punish or to terrorize. And of course, we got to take into the humane treatment, no quarter, right? You must not kill or mistreat prisoners, surrendering fighters. So if they're prisoners or they're surrendering fighters, so if your enemy is surrendering, they're about to become your prisoner. And it would be if they're surrendering, they've thrown their weapon down, hands up, walking towards you to be taken into custody as prisoners of war, and you shoot them all down and execute them, that is absolutely a war crime. Or those who are out of the fight, the wounded, hors de combat, meaning badly wounded. They're wounded. They have no ability to fight back, run, flee, or anything. They are wounded and they are suffering on the ground. You must treat them humanely. You must take them into your possession, and then you're responsible for, meaning, yes, you have to get them medical help and hope that they survive. By the way, that's one of the objectives on the battlefield, by the way. You don't want to kill every one of your enemies. You're better off, and this is the goal, to injure as many of the fighting soldiers to take them out of the equation, but make it so that your enemy has to use a lot of resources for saving them, treating them, feeding them, housing them, transporting them. You want to eat up your enemy's resources and taking care of their wounded. So when you see JAGs or law professors debating whether a strike was LOAC compliant, that's what they're asking. Did the operation follow the law of armed conflict, the legal and ethical rules for fighting a war? That is the question. And what are we talking about? What happened? What's all this? Well, we hit a boat. 11 people, 9 killed in the first strike, 2 people in the water. They hit it again. And those 2 that were surviving the initial hit perished in the second hit. But we got to go back to what was the military objective, and was the boat taken out of operation 100% in the first hit? Usually, the fact if a couple of people have lived, it does usually lend to the argument that no, the boat's still operational to some point, and the second strike was needed. Well, a Cornell law professor and former Army JAG, Dr. Brian Cox, he's come out and he publicly dismantled this anonymous former JAG's working group letter. Yeah, you might have heard about this letter, right? That claimed Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth committed a war crime and or murder in connection with this September, and it was September 2nd, by the way, the September 2nd strike on suspected narco-trafficking boat in the Caribbean. Now, the accusation stemmed from the Washington Post report alleging that Hegseth, he gave the order to kill everybody on the vessel, and that a second strike killed 2 survivors clinging to the wreckage. Now, Pete Hegseth and other credible sources denied that Pete Hegseth never said those words, never said kill everybody. The orders, the standing orders to these captains of these vessels is to take the boats out that are bringing poison and drugs to the United States. That's it. Now, Cox argues that the anonymous JAG letter misstates both the facts and the law of armed conflict. See, it ignores whether the boat remained a military objective, and it skips any serious proportionality analysis. It misuses no quarter rules. Back to the injured, okay? That's why we needed that background. And even in events of concept of pending or international law, the U.S. has never ratified. So he calls the war crime charge entirely unconvincing and warns that repeatedly telling troops their leaders issues unlawful orders based on flimsy legal theories is destabilizing and dangerous for military discipline. And what am I doing? I'm tying this back to those 6 government elected jamokes who did that PSA about you don't have to follow orders. And this type of thing is meant really for the JAGs and the legal scholars and ratification, and to be out there trying to tell them, so if you're thinking, am I supposed to be blowing up this boat? And you start to question, you don't do your job. That's absolutely insubordination. The chain of command is absolutely vital in keeping this type of operation from injuring innocents, civilians, or the wounded, or prisoners of war. This was dangerous what those 6 people did. And this is I'm applying it here. I'm applying it here to illustrate why that is. And this Cox has done a great job in dismantling this whole letter, anonymous letter. And this new reporting undercuts the central claim that Defense Secretary Hegseth personally ordered the killing of survivors from that strike. According to the report summarized by the New York Post, based on U.S. officials, Hegseth authorized a legal strike to destroy the vessel and those on board before the operation, but did not issue any instructions about dealing with survivors. Adam Frank Mitch Bradley, head of the U.S. Special Operations Command, approved both the original strike and the follow-up strike that killed 2 survivors in the water. This lines up with the New York Times reporting that Hegseth's orders did not address any failed first strike or surviving crews, contradicting the earlier Post narrative, the Washington Post narrative, that had given a kill everybody order. The White House and President Trump are now openly backing Hegseth's denial and continue to defend the overall operation as lawful action, designated narco-terrorist targets, even as Congress investigates whether the second strike itself complied with the law of armed conflict. Again, smoke screens and going after and trying to muddy this water. 508-871-7000. Let me go to the phones. Gary, we only have a couple minutes. What say you?
Well, you know, if an anonymous source from the New York Times says it's true, by God, it must be true. I'm not saying that, you know.
Anonymous source, and some people say.
Yeah, my favorite one is reporters will ask each other questions while inside the White House. They'll say, "What do you think about this?" And they'll say, "People inside the White House are saying this." It's like, you guys, they are a shameless crew. And it's funny how this report just suddenly popped out not a week after this whole, illegal orders business. You know, it sounds like a setup. It sounds like the Democrats have decided that, and I think this is part of what they do for their base. They come out and they say anonymous source, and then they start reporting it as, well, the Washington Post has an anonymous source, and then the Washington Post is quoted in the New York Times, and then the New York Times will run the story.
It's a circle jerk that they all we're against the clock. Sorry, Gary. I've got to end you there. Sorry for it, but thank you for the call, folks. Yeah, they confirm each other's stuff, but we'll talk about that tomorrow's show back at 1:00, of course. Thanks for joining me. But this will wrap it up. 508-871. I don't know why I'm rolling the number. Follow me at Joe Mangi Show. All right, folks. Take care.